Today we're joined by the incredibly funny Leroy Brito, a rising star in the UK comedy scene. Leroy, all the way from Cardiff, Wales, is bringing the laughs with his unique blend of observational humor and relatable stories. From a late start in his comedy career to navigating the ups and downs of the industry, Leroy shares his inspiring journey. We dive deep into his creative process, the challenges of balancing a day job with his passion for stand-up, and the hilarious anecdotes from his time on stage.
Ideas formulate in my head, as I say, and I've been through difficult relationships and those type of things. And as you get older, sometimes you realize that, it is you, the reoccurring factor in these relationships. I do draw on my real life. So I talk about, having children young. I talk about, getting married, well, not relatively late, but in my late 30s, I got married and those type of things.
Get ready for some insightful conversation and a whole lot of laughter as we chat with the hilarious Leroy Brito. Let's go.
All right, I'm here with Leroy Brito, and he's in the other side of the pond. I'm in Georgetown, Texas. I'm from L.A. He's over there, and was it Cardiff? You said?
Yes, in Wales.
In Wales, and he's been there whole life. I'm curious to know what the stand-up scene's like out there. But take us back to the origin. Let us know, why stand-up? Were you the kid, the typical funny kid? What was the impetus? Take it away.
Yeah, so the dream was always stand-up ever since, just being a little kid, growing up in the 80s, watching Eddie Murphy, Raw, Delirious, Richard Pryor records, myself and my cousin just listening to that, watching Seinfeld. And then life gets in the way, man. So had kids quite young, university. So I was 18.
Am I allowed to ask how old? Because you look really young. How old are you?
I'm 42.
What?
Yeah, 42.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
All right. Good for you, man. Drink your water or whatever, your tea or whatever you're drinking over there. Keep on going.
Yeah, it keeps me going.
Right.
So I had my kids young. So I started comedy at 29. And I haven't stopped since then, but it took a while to get to the stage.
Wow. Okay. So, was it always in the back of your mind? I want to do that, but I don't know if I'm going to do that. Or what were you doing for work? And kind of take us through that journey. Cause that's a big crossroads. And what was the inciting incident that said, okay, let's do it. Let's do this.
So it was, as I said, always in the back of my mind. Had kids really young, university, a few years later. So I went, when I was like 22 to university, and then graduated, and then just in the grind, just sales jobs, recruitment. Always wanted to do it. And then I went to see Louis C.K., funny enough, in London. Mm-hmm. And that was the inciting incident. And another friend of mine who does comedy as well was at the same gig, and he started off the back of that as well.
So that's kind of a nice shoehorn, though. Did you guys start doing stand-up at the same time, going to the same open mics and all that?
Yes, yeah. So it's funny that we were in the same place. And London's 3 hours on the train. We both went to London to watch Louis perform and come back and then start. And he actually won the Edinburgh Festival like 3 years ago, that kid. So yeah, Jordan Brooks.
What, your buddy, now I think I remember that Louis C.K. Concert though out there, because there was a big tour that he was doing. When was that? What year?
That would have been 2010. Yeah, 2010. And I would have started 2011 next month, February 2011, I started. That's my 13 years in the game. Yeah.
So when you start doing open mics, you're doing it with your buddy, which is a little easier. It's nice because if you you bomb, then he's like talks to you in the car a little bit or whatever, in the train or whatever, get for that consultation. But where did you first perform? What place?
It was a small place, an arts theatre, just a small little comedy club in there. They run every few weeks, open mic. And I still go back there just to do new material because it's still open. So I still go back and show love. But 5 minutes and I was hooked. Haven't stopped since then.
How'd you do your first time?
Good. Yeah. It was I don't get nervous before any gig. So the biggest gig, I'm just quite relaxed beforehand, and I was relaxed at the gig. And the person who gave me the gig is now a really close friend. And he said, you couldn't believe how relaxed you were and how natural you were. So the material came a lot longer, but the stage presence, was there at the beginning.
How was your second routine? How'd you do on your second?
Oh, rubbish, shit. Yeah. That
so
was
typical.
Of course,
right.
yeah, because you think you can do it. After one gig, you're emailing people saying I've done this and I've done that, and then a little bit of gravity you need, don't you?
Right. It's so typical. That's why I asked that. Likewise, when I did stand up when I was 19, did great. And then the second time I did stand up, I'm like, well, the second time I did stand up though was like not fair. But you know where the whiskey is on Sunset Boulevard in LA? You ever hear of it?
No, I've never been to LA. No.
It's a famous place. I did stand up once, and then my friend's like, "Hey, I want you to introduce the band, before we go on." And this is like this is where the Doors performed. Like I'm like, no problem. This is going to be an opportunity. I have to wait in line. Just do stand up. Maybe a little 4 minutes before that. So I start going into some shit, and they weren't having that. And my buddy had to, after like 3 minutes, he walks on stage like, I think they're ready to hear the band now. And I like,
and I bet that was a long 3 minutes as well, wasn't it?
I was under the impression that's like, let's force yourself to put yourself in situations to help yourself grow. But, but even to this day, I'm like proud I got kicked off the stage at the Whiskey because it's a famous place. So I wear it like a badge. But so now, what was your writing process in the beginning, and how did you grow into like that? And what does that process look like today?
So it's evolved quite dramatically. So initially, I'm writing pen and pad, trying to force myself to sit down and get something on the paper at that time, and trying to force the structure and everything so it comes out perfect. These days, an idea comes along, you're probably the same. I'll write a note in my phone. I'll read that note. I'll just let the idea marinate in my head. And that's the best way to write for me. The idea marinates, I take it on stage then, and I'll just have I'll have the punchline where I think I need it to be, the premise somewhere, and just try to match them together. Yeah. It's a lot more organic these days compared to, just forcing myself. So I don't sit down and write anymore. I'm constantly thinking of material, letting it marinate in my head. The subconscious does the work for me.
So do you invite tragedy? I don't invite tragedy, but when it happens, the first knee-jerk reaction is, what's funny about this?
Yeah, of course. Constantly, yeah.
You have a great joke, it's not you, it's me, and she's like, it's not you, tell us the joke because I don't want to fuck it up.
Yeah, so an ex-girlfriend.
I love that joke, by the way. It's a perfect joke, because it's real too.
Yeah, so she broke up with me, gave me the "it's not you" speech, sat me down, just like candles, bit of Sade in the background, and said, "Listen, Leroy, it's not you, it's me. I think you're a cunt."
I love that. It's nice. It's tight. It's perfect.
Yeah.
Now that came out of like probably came to you right away. Did that really happen? Right?
No.
No, it didn't.
It didn't really happen.
So let's talk about that. That's interesting. How did you write that? How did you write that joke?
She was a bit of a cunt, but yeah. Ideas formulate in my head, as I say, and I've been through difficult relationships and those type of things. And as you get older, sometimes you realize that, it is you. So you're the reoccurring factor in these relationships. Yeah. So I do draw on my real life. So I talk about, having children young. I talk about, getting married, well, not relatively late, but in my late 30s, I got married and those type of things. And then, juggling my life was like, I've got a 24-year-old daughter. I've got a 3-year-old daughter. So, wow. The juxtapose that, and I've got a son who's 18, who's like bigger and stronger than me. So I've got to watch my mouth around him. Those type of things I talk about in my life.
What's your biggest challenge that you've had since you started, as a career? What's the biggest challenge?
Biggest challenge for me is finding the work. When I say the work, I mean like the day job balance compared to the career balance. So, I'm doing well in comedy, but I'm lucky enough to hold down a full-time job, which is really flexible, that gives me the opportunity to do what I want in comedy. Mm-hmm. So if, a lot of people I know, they've gone full-time in comedy, but they're not really full-time. They're just doing like 1 or 2 weekends a month and trying to sustain themselves. So I've got 4 kids, mortgage, I need to make sure the bills are paid and then the comedy can happen. And I've got a really good balance, but it did take a while to find that balance.
How often you going up?
4 or 5 times a week.
Yeah. And that's what it needs.
Yeah.
That's the diet. That's what
100%. You need to put the graft, you need to put the gym work in.
Yeah.
So the weekend is where the money is made, but the foundation is done Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, those type of gigs where you've got to go out and just do, die sometimes because you're trying new stuff out. So I'm building towards a tour at the moment. So all week I've been doing, 10, 15, 50-minute spots just to build that material, make it tight for the tour. And then this weekend I'm out doing 20s in the club, which is a completely different, mindset in terms of your material.
Right. So what kind of like places are you performing at? What's the scene like out there right now? And what's your rotation of venues look like?
Oh, it's nice. So as I said, I'm only 2 hours on the train from London. And a stone's throw away is one of the best clubs this side of the Atlantic. So the Glee Club in Cardiff. So the Glee is like a brand which has got like 4 or 5 clubs, and they're really nice. Full every weekend, like 450 people in there. I've got my tour show there in Cardiff, which is like a homecoming. So we've sold that gig out. We've got another date on there. So the Glees are my bread and butter. And then, you go to London and there's like the Comedy Store, which you probably know, the Comedy Store in London. Seinfeld will drop in, Kevin Hart will drop in, those type of places. So it's really nice gigs. And then, you go outside a little bit to other parts of the country and they're more boutique. They're more just one person who's a promoter running a gig. And they're really nice gigs, but they're not the club, that Saturday night club feel.
Right. How are you going to promote? How do we get to the next level? What's the plan to promote? To do, I guess, the 1 hour, 2024, what is some of the triggers and modalities that we could do to try to get yourself, out there?
Yeah. So I think I was speaking to my manager about this, and I think the missing jigsaw piece for me is the social media aspect, which I've been working hard on recently. Yeah. So I think the performance side, I think the business side of comedy as well, I've got quite switched on. So I'm constantly working with, like, I'm doing lots of TV work, those type of things. My tour, I'm filming my tour up my own back, and I'm hopefully getting that broadcast with a broadcaster over here. But it's just the social media side of things. So I'm working on building that. But at the same time, I've got a life. I don't want to spend my life just glued, right, hoping that people are liking my shit when, I've got other things to do in my life. So, I'm still young, but at the same time, I'm just a little bit outside of that social media age, where it's not every part of my life. So I think it's just the social media. Everything else will fall into place because the material's there, the work ethic is there. The network within comedy is there as well. And this is my debut tour as well. So the tour starts next month. And it finishes, well, it was due to finish in New York, but we've actually added extra dates over in the UK now as well. So I'll be in New York in June.
Oh, cool. How are you promoting? What are some of the triggers for promoting as far as you got your social? What else can you do to, promote, your tour?
I'm doing a lot of press at the moment. So I've been on radio this week twice. I'm in the papers tomorrow over here as well. And hopefully just keep spinning and keeping my face in people's faces.
Right.
And that, involves some spend on social media as well. And just aligning myself with good people. So I've been fortunate enough to, do support slots with, someone. So Mo Gilligan, for example, he's going out to the States soon. I've done a spot with him November, and that was lovely. That's like 5,000, people there. That was lovely. In my hometown as well. So the reaction was beautiful. Yeah. And then Guz Khan's done some stuff with Netflix as well. I was with him a few weeks ago, and probably the greatest Welsh stand-up, Rod Gilbert. I've done support work with him. So that helps in terms of building the brand because you're aligned with these people. So I've got more social media followers off the back of that than any of the stuff I've done online myself.
Do festivals work? What are the good? What's the bad?
So I'm quite unique. I've stayed away from the Edinburgh Festival just in terms of trying to see it as a business decision. Mm-hmm. So as a business decision, I can't justify spending like £20,000 on, PR, room rental, accommodation for the whole month
Wow.
when I can just put a show on down here
Right.
and make more money. And the last show I did down here, I sold it to radio and I made my money back more than I was making at Edinburgh. So I've tried to be, the salmon going against it, because I can't go up to Edinburgh for the whole month and be around comedians for the whole month.
Right.
Because I think I'll end up just like, losing it. So I've stayed away from that. But there's other festivals which I've loved. So I've done one in Ireland last year called Kilkenny. And that was beautiful. That was just a weekend. They fly you over there. You do like 8 gigs and then they fly you back, and it was beautiful. I'm doing another one in Wales in the summer called MacFest. So I do the smaller festivals, but the Edinburgh Festival is just, it's not for me. Have you been over for the Edinburgh?
No, I've never been there. I've heard, of course, amazing things about it. I heard, sometimes, it'll, you have a good performance, there's people there and you'll be able to make great contacts, maybe get other gigs, and it pushes your career. It helps push your career along, but sometimes it doesn't. So, I've heard good things and bad things.
Yeah. And I've realized that my audience are not the type of people who would go to Edinburgh for the month, go to see a comedy festival and pay £400 per night for the hotel. That's not my demographic. Yeah. So there's no point me going up there to chase that and then being disappointed because I've got 2 people in the room. It just doesn't make sense for me. I'd rather,
You might end up doing it one day.
Yeah. On my own terms, though, not on the terms of the Edinburgh Festival, where you have to just throw stupid amounts of money and hope for the best.
So, you've had a long, good clip of a career. What are some of the crazy things that you've seen in your scene? And what any highlights of any weird circumstances that have happened at clubs, or give us a nice little fucked up situation.
There's always like the comedy clubs are quite cool because they're structured. So they've got security. They've got, just the expectation of how you're going to sit, how you're going to behave during a comedy club. And you get hecklers. And that's, as a seasoned pro, you should be able to handle hecklers. Yeah. It's the ones off the beaten track, which are the difficult ones to do. So I remember pulling up to a gig with my friend, and I was driving. And I just said to him, let me just pull the car around this way so it looks like we can get out quite quickly. This doesn't seem like the nicest environment. And we got there. And it was just a weird family event. And everybody was drunk. And then the promoter came up to me and said, listen, we haven't got any money to pay you. So, okay, well, you did say you're going to pay us. He said, well, I'm going to get my father to go to the cash point and get some money. But there's no point going on because everyone's drunk. So we were thinking, okay, we need to get our money. And then the grandmother got on the microphone and told us to get on the fucking stage and do our shit. We tried to leave. They chased us out of the building. And luckily I was parked in a way where we could get out there. We got out there just in time. And yeah, it was a great, but that's a beaten track one. The normal clubs are cool, but it's just.
This is fantastic. So wait, this family were running after you?
Extended family. Yeah. It was
how many people?
There was about 100 people in the venue.
Shit.
100 people weren't chasing us. It was mainly just the young,
a dozen
drunk. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that.
In retrospect, that's awesome. At the time, you're thinking, what the fuck's going on here? Right. Yeah, we made it out of there.
So you didn't get paid?
We got a story out of it, though, which is better than getting paid. Yeah,
that's awesome. And the grandmother is telling to get a fuck on stage. That's great. I love that. So that was your buddy that you usually tour around with?
Another guy. That's another guy. He's just come back from LA, funny enough, a guy called Ignacio Lopez.
Okay. All right.
You should get him on here. He's great.
Okay. And is he from where you're at, or is he from where's he from?
He's actually half Welsh, half Spanish. So he spent most of his childhood in Mallorca and then moved to Wales as a kid.
Okay. So it'd be funny if he wasn't familiar with the area and he's like, what the kind of scene is this shit? But he's like, you guys were like, we knew we were driving out here to the, and then, okay.
Yeah, you get the vibe. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've been on stage where somebody is just like, started doing an interpretive kind of performance, He just started he like just lied down on the stage and started moaning. And I was like, what the fuck is happening here? But that's probably like the highlight, of the.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to see. It's great to see other deaths as well, especially like we all die, which is cool. When somebody dies and they have no, they don't realize they're dying. They think they're doing well.
Yeah,
that's the funniest time. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what was happening with that guy. I just anyways. So what's going on like topical right now? What's going on this week? Where are you performing next? What's happening? What are you going to talk about? What's happening?
Oh man, so I've it's been quite busy just prepping the tour show. So just making sure that the jokes are tight, the material's tight, the theme is tight. Then this weekend I'm in a lovely place which is like an hour and a half away, called Comedia, which is a lovely theatre. There'll be about 300 people in there. It's just going to be a lovely gig. So that's what I'm looking forward to, just doing that and doing my 20. Which, I could do my 20. I could play around with things as well because you know it so well. Do a little bit of crowd work. But that's what I'm looking forward to. And then it's back on the grind on Sunday, doing new material then in a small place. So just, doing the prep work.
All right. Let's, it just entered my mind. I sometimes I ask this question. When you enter in, you're not hitting. It's just, you're not totally bombing, but it's just not hitting. And they don't hate you. They might even want you to succeed, but it's just not hitting. And how did you handle the beginning and what that mature moment, the maturity moment, the growth, the conscious competence that you started to attain in that situation where you're sitting in your head and you're like, how am I going to navigate? Okay, I know exactly what's happening here. How do I navigate out? What does that look like before? And what are some of the triggers that you've kind of built on to get out of that and work with that situation?
Yeah. So at the beginning, when you're doing material and when you first begin and you're dying, there's an arrogance thinking, well, this is good jokes, but they're not tried jokes. They're not tested. You haven't got the stage presence. You're probably not doing ideal comedy environment as well. You're probably in a pub somewhere where there's people who've just walked in and they're watching comedy, but they're not really there for comedy. So you're just thinking, you're in survival mode constantly. As you get better and you do better rooms and you've got more experience, you start, you're in the moment. I'm always in the moment on stage, but there's another part of me which is watching and thinking 2 or 3 steps ahead and is conscious of everything was happening in the room. And you probably don't even realize it, but you're always just thinking, okay, this can go in a few minutes time. I'm going to say this just to set up that. So you're playing chess almost with the audience, but they don't know it. So you're ahead of yourself, but at the same time, you're still delivering the jokes as, people think you've just thought of them up. So when you're at that stage and you're struggling at the beginning, there's a little bit of turbulence, I call it. Just a little bit of turbulence. And it's your job then to write that and show the audience, give them the confidence, and you know what you're doing. So if I'm ever struggling at the start of a set, I'm aware of that. With something big, I'll go in with a big one-liner, knowing that it's going to get people on board, and then they can just relax and think, okay, he's going to be good. We trust him. Let's crack on.
The last couple months ago, I had it was a nice crowd. Go up there, first 3 jokes hit great, and then I just slide into a spiral downfall, and I was like, oh shit. Are you serious? And I'm like, and I'm not a seasoned comedian. I'm like, what do you call a ham and egger? But I've done it off and on since I'm 19, and I'm like thinking, and this was like another stint where I go back and I do some stand up again, like a couple months ago, taking a little break again. But I was thinking, oh my God, I'm going through this again right now. So then I go into my, something else. I'm like, maybe I'll go into that. And it's just stale. And I'm like, what the fuck? And then I thought what I had, a great time joke, but that didn't, like to comment on how I was bombing, because that usually helps the cop.
Yeah,
like,
sure.
And I was like, oh shit, this turned into a tech talk, and nothing. And I was like, okay, I'm like dying.
But it's also being conscious of the room. So whenever I play out in America, I need to switch my mind So the fact that you've got bar staff walking past everyone and ordering drinks and those type of things, because that is quite off-putting for me. If it happened over here, everybody in the room would be paying attention to the bar staff ordering the drinks, because usually everybody's just looking at the, at the comic. So you need to be aware of what else is happening in the room. Someone might, have an argument with someone. There might be a bit of energy, just a little bit of bad energy. So we call them stag do's. It might be like, bachelor parties at the gig, and they, could be a little bit boisterous. So you need to be just aware of everything in the room. And that's why I'm talking about like just having that mind, just watching everything and being aware, just scanning the room constantly.
Some of the best strategies really is before you go on. And I did that with this particular gig, but I really didn't come up with any good, things off the fly about it. But like there were pilots in the room, so you're like,
yeah.
So you're saying, okay, these are pilots. Okay. Before I go on, what can I do about, pilots? So, do I have any good thing about that? I actually did say something about Spirit Airlines. I'm like, they named the airline the one thing that they don't want their clients to become. Nothing. So I don't know. But it's just one of those different scenarios. But I guess that's what you do is you're a lot of strategy before you go up, right? And then
I watch every gig. I watch it. I watch the gig. I MC quite a lot as well. So I've got I host nights as well.
Oh, and okay, yeah.
So MC. So I'm constantly my sword is sharp in terms of that crowd work. So, for example, if I was watching and there were pilots in the room, I wouldn't really be thinking like, what pilot jokes have I had? I would let the conversation in terms of me speaking to the pilots, I'd find jokes in there. I'm confident enough in my ability that, I'm gigging enough that I've got something to come back with.
Right.
So it wouldn't be a conscious thing in terms of writing down a pilot joke. It would just be interacting with them, because they usually give you the setup anyway when you're MCing. Yeah. They usually, set you up with something stupid they said, and you can go back in and hit them.
Being an MC, that's a great. Isn't that a great that wouldn't you suggest most comedians to start MCing? Like to get in shape, to get that tool, that muscle. It's also because you're not so obligated to be the main guy. So there's like if something doesn't hit, but you get more interaction. I don't know. There's a certain je ne sais quoi that happens when you do some MC gigs. Yeah.
It gives you an opportunity to keep going back up. So if you think of something, you can go back up and do it. It gives you an appreciation of what a good MC is. So you can set the room. So when, I've got some really good friends who are great MCs, and they set the room up for me. And it's like shelling peas. It's easy because they've created that environment where everyone feels, they're good to laugh. They've tested the boundaries of the room, etc. And you can go in and do your thing. If there's a poor MC and they do too long, or they do too short, or they don't really set the environment up, you're going to probably struggle. As good at act as you are, you're going to have to do some MC work yourself to establish the room and then go into your material. So the work of an MC is, it's thankless. And a lot of the times after you MC, they come up to you, the audience, and say, "Oh, you should do comedy yourself." It's like, well, that's exactly what I was just, I was just doing that.
Right. Well, what's next? What's next for you? What's going on? What do you have planned? Also, what's the long-term view look like for your career?
So the tour is next. Starts next month. Some really nice dates. As I said, I got the Cardiff date, which I'm really looking forward to. And then I'm in New York on the 15th and 16th of June, doing some headline spots at West Side Comedy, and hopefully some other spots around the city as well. Long term, and I've said this to many people before, the long term for me is getting to if this can happen for me, everything else has fallen into place. So if I could phone the Comedy Cellar in New York and say, "Yo, I'm going to drop in," and I'm at that level, everything else has fallen into place.
That would be nice.
I'm not at that level yet.
But you know what? I get that because what a great play. There's certain venues around the world, especially in New York, L.A., where you're like, I just want to be able to pop in there. How great would that be? And just do and it's just such a nice, pleasurable room. It's just the whole thing. It's like I say this all the time about this movie, but there's a movie called Broadway Danny Rose. It's a Woody Allen movie.
Yeah.
And he plays an agent for comedians and ventriloquists and magicians and shit like that. And it's a great film. And it starts with a bunch of comedians in Carnegie Deli. They're sitting at a table and they're talking about Danny Rose. And it's just such a great atmosphere. It's such the room, the red carpeting, the booths, the pictures on the wall, and that's how the Comedy Cellar is. It has that richness, and everybody's there to laugh, and it's a great kind of, and they're tough to, it's a big arena, it's a classic place, but then, it's New York, but you get them to laugh and they're with you. And that's that's a beautiful dream. That's a nice long,
exactly.
Just to walk right in, kind of like what, who's the tall kid, Ray Romano, he had a special remember, just see the Ray Romano special with, he goes to the Comedy Cellar.
Yeah.
He just walks right in. There was 2 Comedy Cellars. There's one across, like, down the street from each other.
Yes,
right?
there is, isn't there? Yeah.
And
there's the one on Dougal Street.
Yeah. And
that's the one in the Village, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. And he's had his TV show and he just walks up there and and people know him and he knows probably a lot of people in the crowd. And what a wonderful, I love that. I love your, some people are like, I want to be able to get, have the dream or this and that. And those are great dreams too. But I love the fact that that's a true comedian. A true comedian they love several things, in my opinion. They love planes and hotels. You kind of like that. And they love that, like, that kind of explanation. You're encapsulates that well. I just want to be able to go into, place a Comedy Cellar or Improv or Comedy Store and just be able to roll up and do a set.
Exactly, because I'll never stop. I'll be an old man, on stage, and this is who I am. It's always been who I am. I just didn't show the world. So
it's a beautiful journey. I love it. Leroy, Brito, tell everybody how they could find out more about you.
Yes, you can find me on Instagram at Leroy Brito, Brito. I've got a website as well, but Instagram's probably better for more entertainment purposes. If you're out in New York on West Side Comedy, 2 shows on the 15th, 2 shows on the 16th, and I'll be around New York around that weekend doing other spots as well. If you're in the UK, I'm on tour over here, starts next month. Find it on my Instagram page.
One of the best compliments I think I can give you, and when you go to his Instagram, watch his stand-up, and that it's natural, he's in the moment, he's communicating, he's himself, he's that heightened person. It's him at the party that he's learned when, before he did stand-up, he did stand-up at a party, telling jokes at a party. Now he's able to take that parallel experience and bring it on stage. And that's who you are on stage. And I love it. And your craft. Yeah, exactly.
There's no difference between who I am right now and who I am on stage. They could call me up right now and I'll be ready to go.
Right. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing.
Well, it's great speaking to you, man. Lovely to meet you.
Pleasure.
Thanks for joining us. Gear up for your next adventure and head over to bolotour.com to check out the amazing Bolo Pack and their other innovative outdoor gear. Catch you next time.